Hi, welcome back to part 2 of the First Responder Awareness Level Training for EMS Providers. We're going to talk very quickly about taking control of a hazardous scene from the EMS perspective. Okay? This section is not going to be quite as lengthy as the last one, so you can be relieved about that. Okay, so our objectives in this section would be to identify the procedures for initiating your emergency response plan, identify the proper procedures for implementing a protective action distances, making sure you're at the right distance to stay safe, and then take action necessary to properly isolate the incident and prevent further harm, injury, or danger. Okay. Again, the Emergency Response Guidebook is going to be your Bible in this. It's going to give us a lot of information about the origin of the hazard, the goals for the hazard, and then give us some purpose and limitations on what we should do and what we should not do. So it's going to be your Bible. Again, if you haven't looked through that and know how to use it, please do so. Okay. So our steps are going to be to recognize and identify the hazardous material. We would love to find the name of it if we could. So if you know the name of the chemical or the material, you can absolutely look that up in your ERG. If you don't know the name, but you can see the 4-digit ID number on a container, then that will be enough for you to identify in your emergency response guidebook what that material is and how you need to address it. And then lastly, the placard description. So if you can look up the placard description, it's going to get you pretty close to where you need to be. So we want to look up the guide page number. So we can search this emergency response guidebook in 2 different ways, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But once we've looked up the material that we have, look up the number, and then according to the guide page, each chemical has its own pages. So look at those pages and take the protective action that is listed on those pages, and then initiate the evacuation and isolation procedures according to what distance is recommended based on what chemical you're dealing with. Okay, so again, our basic approach actions. We have 3 things that we need to do. Our main objectives are to isolate. Now this is after we recognize it. So then we have 3 things left: to isolate, to protect, and to notify. So we've got to initiate our emergency response plan, and that's going to include notifying the proper authorities and the people that are directly involved. So you can see here, these are some various pages out of the emergency response guidebook. There's several. This is out of a PDF. Let me see if I can make this a smidge. Whoops. Well, that didn't work quite like I had hoped. So let me see if I can just zoom in. Yes, I can do this. Okay. So how to use the guidebook. This one I love. Resist rushing in. Approach incident from upwind, uphill, or upstream. Stay clear of all spills, vapors, fumes, smoke, and suspicious sources. So identify it. Step 2 is identify the 3-digit number and then use your numbers. So the yellow bordered pages are pages that go to if you know the ID number. So if you know ID number, you're going to flip to those yellow pages and they're listed numerically. Go in there quickly and find the number that you need. The blue pages list the material index. So if you know the name of the material, you're going to go to the blue pages and look alphabetically. Okay. Now you can see, let me get in here to this one. This is another page. This has more of an algorithm set. So do you see an explosive? Yes. Go here and it tells you what pages the guides are on. No, Then do you know a number? Go to the yellow pages. If you don't, do you know the name of the material? Yes, then go to the blue pages. No, do you see a placard label? If you do, then go to these pages. Do you see a rail car or a road trailer? Yes, then you're going to go to here. So if you know the ID number, then you're going to go, and it just walks you down through on what to do. Okay. Again, the orange guidelines give you your evacuation distances, and the green guidelines are going to give you also the green distance guidelines. So pretty cut and dried. And over here is going to be a sample of what you would find in the yellow pages. So here's your ID number, and you're going to go down through here until you find the one you're looking for. And then it will tell you it's guide number 115. So you're going to slip over there to 115 and find out exactly how to deal with that particular chemical or incident or material. Okay. Now here is some pages on the yellow page, the orange pages. So these are actually the guides, the emergency guide on how to use. So we just looked on the yellow pages. We looked up an ID number. It told us to go to guide 115. So this is guide 119. It's going to be very similar. And so what you're going to see here, here are your health issues. And this particular one may be fatal if inhaled or absorbed through the skin. So that tells you right away, we need to be way back. Contact with gas or liquefied gas can cause burns, injury, or frostbite. Runoff from fire control may also pollute them. Fire will induce irritating corrosive gases. It tells you in fire explosion hazards, this gas is very flammable, may be ignited by heat, sparks, or flames. And you can just read down through here, public safety. It tells us keep out of low areas, ventilate closed spaces before entering, stay upwind, keep unauthorized personnel away. So if you've got rubberneckers and gawkers, they need to be stayed back. That is a job you can do. So here, isolate spill or leak area immediate for at least 100 to 200 meters. That's up to 660 feet in all directions. Protective clothing that you need to wear. So this particular one is SCBA only. So as an EMT or paramedic, you're not going in, because if you put your SCBA on and go into this incident, you've now become contaminated and you cannot safely transport patients. Talks about evacuation. There's some first aid maneuvers over here. A spill or leak, how to handle that, and then fire, how to handle those. So these are chock full of really good information. So I hope you learn how to use those. Okay. Here's a table of protective action distances. Okay, this table is going to be found in your green pages. And so once you look up the number, then you can quickly know what your number is. Now, if you're looking up the name, it's also going to cross-reference the number. So you can look up the number and or the name. And it looks like, for the most part, they try and make the numbering and the alphabetizing of the agent in the same order. So it looks like they're run in numerical order as well as alphabetical. It's going to tell you isolate this far in all directions, then protect persons downwind. This is interesting. Daytime, the distances are about half of what they are nighttime. So things travel, sound, smells, gases, vapors travel much further at night because the air is lighter. So know what your parameters are there. And so it deals in large spills and small spills. Okay, so that's good information to know and something you should be looking at immediately before you do anything else. Okay, here's our rule of thumb for EMS. When approaching a hazmat scene, extend your dominant arm with your thumb extended. If you can see any on-scene activity around your thumb, you're too close and you need to back up. So you want to back up far enough away that you can hide that entire scene behind your thumb. Now we would still like to be close enough to be able to see what's going on, but if that's not possible, then it's just not possible. If we need to back up far enough to stay safe. Okay. Protective action plans. Good rule. Always park uphill and upwind from the incident. If there's a stream involved and you happen to be in the stream for whatever reason, then you need to be upstream as well. Okay. So we want to shelter in place if this is going to be a short duration incident. If there's a greater hazard, so shelter in place means we're going to kind of hunker down and stay where we're at. As long as we're safe there. If there's a greater hazard to attempt to move out of where we're at than it is to stay there, then we're going to stay there. If it's just completely impractical to evacuate, if we're going to be in more danger trying to get out than we are there, then we're going to stay put. But we're going to evacuate. We're going to evacuate others. So this shelter in place is for us as well as others. So let's say you've got people that are in their homes and safe. It's going to be more dangerous to get them out of their home into the open air than it is to keep them in their homes. Then we will do that. So evacuation, if there's potential for massive fire or explosion, or if this situation is going to be long term, then we may need to think about getting those people out. And that's where our guidebook is going to help us to determine what's going on and how to best respond to that. Now you're also going to have access long-term to maybe a hazmat team. Chemtrek is another resource that we can call, and they have a 1-800 number. So if you know the material that's involved, they might be able to give you some good guidelines as well. Okay. A leak or spill control. That's not what we do. Okay. We are healthcare providers, and even though you may be a firefighter on another day, if you're responding in an ambulance, you are an EMT or a paramedic. So we're going to stay in that role. Okay. We're there for a reason. If you're there to provide health care, then you're there to provide health care. You cannot be a hazmat technician, even if you're qualified at that level, and then come right back and treat patients because you will be contaminated. Okay, so stay out of the hot zone, stay out of the warm zone. We're going to let those people that are equipped and trained to go in, get our people, decontaminate them, and bring them out to us. We stay in the cold zone and wait for them. Okay, so hot means very dangerous, warm means moderately dangerous, cold means there's no danger at all on being contaminated. Okay, and then we have to remember to prevent secondary contamination. So we've got to watch at where does the water go that we're decontaminating our people with, where are their clothes, and we don't want to bring contamination into our ambulance. We don't want to be going in and out of a contaminated area and recontaminating our crew or our patient. Okay. Firefighting is defensive versus offensive. So firefighters are going to be in that role, more of an offensive role sometimes. And that's their role. If you're a firefighter, I absolutely appreciate what you do. I've been in that role, but we have to maintain the role that we are currently assigned. Even if the other role seems more exciting, we have to do the job that we're assigned to do. Okay, so in summary, the emergency response book gives us guidelines. We can find our guide page either by looking up the name or the ID number or the placard information. Okay, basic instructions are going to be on page 1. The yellow pages, we search for ID numbers. The blue pages, we search for material name. The orange are our guidebook pages that give us the information about the material, and the green is the protective action pages, including our safe distances. Okay. And the last unit is unit number 4, termination. This is going to talk about how we wrap up an incident. Okay. So our objectives for this is going to be to identify 3 actions necessary for proper termination of a hazmat incident, and to identify the information that should be received by responders during an on-scene debriefing. Now, on-scene may take place on-scene for EMS providers. We'll be leaving the scene quickly with patients, so we may have to catch the tail end of this, and it may not specifically be on-scene for us. Reasons that we have these debriefing sessions. First of all, it's required by OSHA. So that makes it law, and it's to keep us safer. Okay. Secondly, it's going to relay important information to the responders that were there. So if there was a possibility of a contamination nobody was aware of, if there's an issue with something, we can find out sooner than later. Okay. Thirdly, it ensures that the exposures are documented, which is going to be important for treatment as well as insurance and court issues that may come up later in cases like this. And lastly, to ensure that we improve on our future responses. Frequently, we have mock drills that we do. So I've been actually involved in a mock drill with a nuclear power plant, and they had patients coming out, and we had to go through the whole decontamination, sorting of patients, how we're going to treat them, where we're going to transport them. It was very interesting and very eye-opening for me, because there's truly a lot of this I wasn't familiar with yet. I was operating only as a paramedic at that time and had zero hazmat experience. So that was interesting. On a higher level, it brings in a lot of good data, so you can make better plans and better decisions should this happen in real life. Okay. So the proper steps are an on-scene debriefing. To talk about once the incident is over, very quickly have that conversation of what went well, what didn't go well, what were the problems, what were the roadblocks, and then we'll do an incident critique later, where we're going to talk to people together and maybe see if we can find a plan to overcome those obstacles a little better, and then incorporate that into an analysis of what we did well and how we're going to make this better next time. Okay. Now, this concludes our Hazmat Awareness course. So there will be a quiz, like I talked about, that you will be able to access once you have watched both of these videos. That will require that you get a 90%. You get 3 attempts at that quiz. And once you achieve that 90% on the quiz, you'll be issued a certificate of completion online. So I thank you for participating, and I hope you have an awesome EMS career.